Most people ask, how much does this cost? If that's you, you might be asking the wrong question. The better one, what's actually going on with my driveway and why does it cost what it does to fix it? I only recently learned that as I got a front row seat riding with one of our estimators last week. On that trip, we visited 2 homes on the same street and the driveways looked nearly identical, but they were quoted almost $2,000 apart. If I hadn't seen it myself, I wouldn't have understood the difference. Turns out those driveways weren't identical at all, and there's a lot more going on under the surface than I gave them credit for. I used to think concrete was either fine or falling apart. You fix a crack or you pour new concrete. But the more that I've learned and the more I've realized how confusing it all can be, especially when the first thing we all want to know is how much is this going to cost me? So to answer that in this video, I want you to get ready for real numbers straight from A1 Concrete Leveling, what affects those numbers, when and if it's worth doing anything at all, and the top 4 questions to ask yourself before making that decision. Get your phone ready for this one. You're going to want to screenshot it. Let's start by comparing DIY versus professional services. Here's a quick overview. If you're patching a few cracks or pressure washing a stain, doing it yourself can absolutely save you money. We're talking $5 to $80 total, depending on the materials and equipment you may already have or have access to. Don't be afraid to ask your neighbors. But for most things structural, like lifting slabs, fixing deep cracks, resurfacing, DIY can start to get risky fast. And it's often more expensive long-term as a result. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I get it. Some of these price ranges are pretty wide. Right now is when we're going to take a closer look. Let's walk through some of the most common driveway repairs and what they cost, and also what tends to drive those costs up. For crack repair, the cost depends on how many cracks there are, how wide and deep they go, how much prep is needed, and what materials are used, and that linear footage is going to add up fast. For resurfacing, cosmetic issues like flaking or spalling can be patched, but if you want the slab to look new or match others nearby, that finishing work is what's going to drive up the price. And larger driveways or full resurfacing can really scale that cost quick. When it comes to lifting sunken slabs, DIY is technically possible and there are methods that you can find online, but that's usually a bad idea. The cost for concrete leveling usually depends on the number of slabs, how big the void is underneath, any obstacles in the way, and just the repair material in general. Foam leveling is often 10 to 20% more than stone slurry or mudjack. For tree root removal, if roots are small and accessible, your time might actually be all it costs you to fix this yourself. But for those large or invasive root systems, they often require pro removal or even slab replacement, especially if those roots have altered the slope. Speaking of replacement, total replacement cost hinges on driveway size, the layout, the thickness, rebar or mesh reinforcement, and the removal of the old concrete. For example, a simple 4x4 section needs about 8 90-pound bags of mix, but most driveways are far more complex. Another example of a fix that could be more about your time and effort, depending on the equipment you have, is cleaning. If you notice water pooling after a good pressure wash, that's often a clue that another repair like lifting is needed. Now, I briefly mentioned some factors that can change the cost of each of those services, but in general, here are the 3 big ones we usually see. Bigger areas need more material and time. If you're looking for a uniform look, a larger slab section adds complexity and cost. Long, curved, or hilly driveways are harder to access and work on, which means more labor, more setup, and sometimes more or different equipment. A small patch is way easier than fixing deep flaking or a widespread settle. The worse the damage, the more intensive and probably expensive to fix. Understanding all of these factors helps you make sense of estimates and spot the ones that actually add up. So when is repair not the right move? If your slabs are crumbling, you might be better off starting fresh. That's not to say that you or everyone needs a full replacement, but sometimes patching a problem is just buying time, not actually solving it. Do you remember those 2 driveways and those 2 very different estimates from earlier? 2 slabs can look the same at a glance, but the details under the surface, slope, access, depth of damage, even how far material needs to be pumped, can change everything. If you're still stuck on whether to go DIY or professional or to do any of this at all, ask yourself these 4 things. Can I do this safely myself? Will the fix last and how long? How important is the finished look? And what is my time worth? If you're curious what your repair might cost, you can always request a free estimate with A1 and another pro in your area to give yourself options. Then you can feel more confident deciding if it's worth fixing, replacing, or doing it all yourself. And if you do it yourself, I'm rooting for you. Let me know how it goes in the comments, and until next time, I'm Josh with the Concrete Channel. Thanks for watching.